Moving from object to subject for any gender reconnects us with desire. Full disclosure, this is a thinly veiled rave review of Ginny Giuffre's Nobody's Girl. Ginny wrote 400 pages of raw, subjective emotion. She obviously had the desire to get our attention and connect. Those are essential elements of physical contact, but they are redirected before many of us are even old enough to realize. Jinny was forced into the role of object, but now her subjective experience is immortalized in print. Her desires, not theirs. She writes, as I turned 38, I realized that I'd spent the second half of my life recovering from the first. Recovery is a long road, and this vlog is here to help. I am an SRA survivor, and I relate to her statement about recovering from childhood rather than using it as a springboard. As a child, many of us saw that adults weren't actually safe in the way that we were told. This realization happens slowly over time, and it is heartbreaking. While we were developing coping mechanisms to deal with it, what happens to our desire? What about our life force? Ginny liked to work with horses, and in her book, she describes her trainer telling her, a horse can feel a fly land on its back. Imagine all it can feel from you. If you think it, the horse feels it. Our bodies are very similar to the horse. When we think it, our body feels it. The goal is that your body will trust you. And this is often a long road. When you can develop trust between your mind and your body, you can work together like the horse and the rider to move towards a destination, to move towards your desires. When desires are allowed to originate in the body, and the mind is flexible enough and mature enough to acquiesce and negotiate for the accomplishment of that goal, life force can flow in a way it never did while being objectified. Jinny describes Epstein training her to pretend to enjoy the interactions she was forced to have. She complied under duress because he had already used a surveillance photo of her adorable little brother as a threat of harm in case she crossed him. So she did comply. The rider had to force the horse through some very difficult territory. It's easy to program the mind and the ego. The body is a lot more rebellious. I was not surprised to hear that later in life, Ginny dealt with a lot of medical issues around the time that she was speaking out. The body does not feel safe to break the mental conditioning. The stress levels skyrocket. This, of course, doesn't mean to stop, but the body needs safety. When we can listen to our body, especially in times of extreme stress, like speaking out, we can hold its hand and care for the body, nurture it, giving it what it desires and it needs, rather than reverting to our old training of shoving the horse through rocky territory when it's already very stressed out. What we don't hear from Ginny, what we lose, were her own desires for her future as a child. This woman grew up in survival mode, and she stayed there until she bravely dismantled her own conditioning. When the rider has to control the horse, it is forced on a well-trod path of cliches, power dynamics, and petty ego dramas. Boring, boring, boring. The ego tends to do the same thing, and it is in lockstep with the culture. The body wants to discover something new. Everyone's body wants physical touch, but not in a grotesque ritual. That it will reject. Because your desire is pure life force, it takes a lot for abusers to control it. A wild horse, if you will. Ginny writes, Prince Andrew's team had even gone so far as to try to hire internet trolls to hassle me. Yes, an entire wild west of objectification. The freedom of owning your own story as the subject, not the object, is so threatening that abusers need complex systems of sabotage. Always remember that the goal is control over your life force. Jinny writes, while I'd been in Epstein and Maxwell's world, they'd safeguarded their evil enterprise by stoking rivalries, strategically keeping girls from forging alliances. One wild horse is a threat, so now imagine a stampede. The abusers absolutely must avoid this because the wild horses are more powerful than them. Simply put, the abusers will be trampled. When we deeply connect with our authentic desires, listen to our body, one of those desires will be the desire to connect with one another. This is the abuser's worst nightmare. Even if one wild horse breaks free and comes back to life, the others do take notice. Beyond women and men, abusers divide us based on political party, age, social class, and race. The purpose of this division is to direct our life force at one another rather than straight out of the gate. Unified does not mean homogenized. Each wild horse knows to take a slightly different route, and their instincts are clearer than we have been told. Although we are all in a slightly different spot, we can drive our life force in the same direction, towards freedom. We can listen to our wild horse and take the ride of our lives. Finally, Ginny writes that she yearned for a world in which perpetrators face more shame than their victims do. I already see this happening, our wild herd turning in the right direction, and it feels like the riders are listening to their horses more than ever. I am so excited for us to break free. Perhaps the rider can start listening to the horse and be taken to a new source of flowing water or gorgeous greenery. Let me know what you think.